Let me know when we're ready to get started, Will.
So we're officially going, but let's give a minute or two just to let more participants get in here.
Okay, great. We ready, Will?
Yeah, we should be all good to go. Sorry about that, I was muted.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you all for joining this evening. I am grateful that you've all come together to make sure that the information that we're sharing helps you in this recovery and rebuild process. I do want to start out by acknowledging yesterday's news and just saying how sorry I am for how everyone has been impacted. And I'm sure you're feeling a range of emotions as a result of yesterday's news. While it is a step towards accountability and justice, we know that there's a lot more work to do. And I'm committed to alongside you every step of the way as we're on that journey together. Tonight is really about addressing the questions that you have regarding the rebuilding process, and most importantly, how we work together better going forward to make sure that you get all of the support that you need. I also want to make sure that you have every tool available that the county is offering to make sure that you're able to rebuild quickly with the full support of the county. And to that end, I really do want to thank our new leadership for the Sunset Mesa Property Owners Association, the board of directors who were newly elected, who worked with us to make this happen. I also want to thank the Sunset Mesa Architectural Review Committee. I saw the signs that you have posted in the neighborhood, encouraging people to engage with you as they are moving forward through the planning process. You are very proactive, and we are grateful for the partnership that we have and hopefully want to strengthen it going forward. To start out where we are at in the rebuilding process, there are 5,936 parcels that were damaged or destroyed in the Palisades fire in the 3rd District area. This includes 663 housing units, specifically in the unincorporated areas. Out of those 663 housing units, the county has received 156 rebuild applications, and out of those, 115 have cleared zoning review. A total of 17 parcels to date have been issued building permits. 10 rebuild projects are under construction, and all submitted plans that are pending have been assigned to staff for review. The county maintains a detailed public permit progress dashboard on the website that is recovery.lacounty.gov. It includes an interactive map. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but if you haven't, I encourage you to go to that website and see the data there to make sure that we're all tracking the same information. In addition, I have asked all of the county departments to provide my office a detailed weekly update on all matters related to the rebuild, as well as current permitting progress and any trends that they're seeing. It's something that I specifically requested based on communications some of you individually were having with me directly or with my office and members of my team. And I want to make sure that we are personally tracking this so we can see what the data shows in terms of where we need to push, what improvements we can make to expedite reviews. And so you absolutely know that this is a priority for me and for our entire team. We want to get you home as quickly as possible. Recently, the county also created forecast projections for permit applications, which are based on actual data to date, as well as the Santa Rosa fire permit applications. And that's really looked to as a model for how we want to move forward. This type of modeling is helping our departments create staffing plans to ensure that we are scaling up capacity in lockstep with the permit application process. We already have county agencies that have brought on contract staff to help process the increases in permits, and we are continuing to build capacity in the county because we know that there are more permits than ever coming in, and doing that with the same amount of staff and the existing process will not deliver the results that you are looking for, which is why we're increasing staffing and working in an expedited fashion. We'll talk more about that tonight. On tonight's call, we have with us representatives from Regional Planning, Public Works, Public Health, and our LA County Fire Department. These are all four of our permitting departments, and they are here to give very brief presentations on rebuilding, but most importantly, to answer your questions. While most county departments face curtailments in this budgeting process, we fought to protect the permitting departments to the best of our ability and make sure that we weren't seeing curtailments in public works and the fire department, and of course, planning, which we know are critical to your rebuild efforts. And additionally, to facilitate rebuilding, the county has set up recovery units within public works and regional planning. We've enabled self-certification. We've procured an AI assistant plan check review tool, facilitated standard plan review procedures, hosted Rebuild Together workshops. We've published a resilient rebuild resource guide. We've modified permit workflows in the Epic LA permitting system, and we've extended hours at the Calabasas One-Stop Permitting Center, among other actions. And for some of you, this may be very old news and sound very 101. For some of you, this is the essential information that you've been waiting to get for the county. So I know that part of this meeting might be frustrating for some who are more nuanced in understanding our process. My hope is that tonight we sort of level set so that way on a going forward basis, we're able to all kind of operate from the same understanding and address what are the top of mind issues as we continue to meet going forward. In response to many of you, we've led the Board of Supervisors in seeking fee waivers for rebuild permits, and your feedback has also helped to shape the county's approach to the rooftop proposals in Sunset Mesa. We've partnered with Caltrans to convene public agencies to work together to reduce the impacts that rebuilding will have on the PCH. And we do know that despite all of the county's work to date and the work that is on the horizon, we still know that people are frustrated with the review process, what's required, the amount of time that it takes. And so I really know that I really want to hear your questions and your feedback so we can really triage those areas and drill down into what will be most helpful to you. We certainly want to partner with the Sunset Mesa HOA and welcome as much as you would like to work with us together. I know that you all have day jobs and lives and other things that occupy your time, but this is we know this is a priority for you as it is for us, and we want to make sure that we are working hand in glove to the extent possible. I know you've made changes to your architectural review committee process, and you're also working very hard to ensure compliance with your CC&Rs, which we know is very important to you. And we also know that your review and enforcement of the CCRs is crucial because the county is not a party to the CC&Rs, so we cannot enforce them in the rebuild process. And I raise this because I know it's been an issue that has been raised with us, and I want to continue refining how we work closely together to overcome this challenge. I know it's been a challenge for some who have raised it with our office, and we want to make sure that we're working together within the legal parameters that exist. The county is committed to sharing the data about permits via the permitting dashboard and to making sure that what we're sharing is actually helpful to you. I don't want to provide an overabundance of data that is not helpful. We just want to make sure we're targeting the things that are actually useful. So for tonight, how it's going to work, the departments will detail many of the steps that we as a board and the department have taken together in the process thus far, including facilitating for like rebuilds, hosting informational workshops, and setting up some of the things that I had mentioned earlier. As we move through the presentations, please feel free to ask questions via the Q&A function, and we will go through those. There will be a Q&A period at the end of the meeting. If we don't have your answer tonight, we will make sure to get your information and indicate who will be following up with you. If something comes to mind after tonight's meeting, you are always welcome to reach out to Zach or anybody on our staff. Zach is where we're trying to focus and funnel some of this communication. But if anything, whomever you reach out to in the staff, we'll make sure that we get coordinated on our end so we get you answers. We also, as I mentioned, want to level set. And, at our last meeting together, I mentioned that I want to have weekly or monthly meetings with you all. So that way we're keeping track of what you're experiencing. When you can count on hearing from us in this kind of a setting, if it's useful, and making sure that we're addressing questions at hand. So you know exactly where to find us, how to find us, and what you can count on. So with that, I want to turn it now to Brian McGinnis, who will guide us in where we're at from a regional planning perspective.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Horvath. Hello. Nice to meet a lot of you for the first time. I'm sure many of you I've spoken to in either the Calabasas or Altadena One-Stop Permit Center. My name is Brian McGinnis. I am a senior regional planner on LA County Planning's disaster recovery team, helping Eaton and Palisades fire survivors navigate the rebuilding process. As Supervisor Horvath mentioned, I will keep my presentation brief, as many of you are probably familiar with a lot of what I am about to say, but for some of you, hopefully this is of use. Next slide, please. Wonderful. Okay, great. So just a brief overview of the review agencies involved. First of all, there is regional planning. We look first and foremost at what is sometimes referred to as the building envelope, that is building height, required yard setback areas, and as well as building footprint and square footage. Next, if the property is on a septic system, it has to be reviewed by the Department of Public Health. But if your property is connected to a public sewer, your application will get routed to the Department of Public Works Building and Safety Division, who will evaluate a project on the basis of structural stability, energy efficiency, and other engineering standards. Last but not least, LA County Fire reviews the application concurrently while Building and Safety's review is taking place. And it's very important to note that property owners who both owned and lived on the property prior to January 7th qualify for a permit fee waiver. And more information on that is available on our website, which I will point to in just a bit. Next slide, please. So like for like rebuilds, as many of you have probably heard before, are projects with structures that are generally same size, same location, and for the same purpose as the previous structures that were located on the property and damaged or destroyed by wildfire. Like for like rebuilds offer an expedited timeline and exemptions from compliance with the current zoning code. Next slide, please. So more information about like for likes. So they rebuilding what existed previously with expansions of up to 10%. So that applies to height, size, bulk, footprint, and square footage. We are not concerned with the internal floor plan, room count, or ceiling height, although public health regulates the room count if the property is on septic. It does not need to come in compliance with current zoning code rules and regulations, but it cannot go further out of compliance. A standalone accessory dwelling unit, or an ADU, is allowed while the property owner rebuilds the primary residence as part of a like-for-like rebuild project. And just lastly, I want to mention ADUs and junior ADUs are allowed as part of a like-for-like rebuild project, subject to the county's ADU requirements. Next slide, please. So the next couple of slides are just going to go into how to apply. As you can see on the right there, those are the items that are called for. Architectural plans, which include site plans, floor plans, elevations, as well as number 3 there is important and often overlooked. If a property is owned by an LLC or a corporation or a partnership or a trust, please submit a document listing the names and addresses of the principal owners. And finally, at the bottom there, fee waiver, as I mentioned before. Could you go on to the next slide? This is just plan sheet examples. So as you can see here, we have example site plan, floor plan, elevations, and if you have any oak trees on the property, call those out. Next slide, please. So you can submit plans online or in person at any of our field offices. A couple of slides from now, I will have the hours and location of the Calabasas One-Stop Center, which is moving. Next slide. So LA County eCheck, which is powered by Archistar, uses AI for faster approvals. And is currently available for properties in Sunset Mesa in the R1 or single family residence zone. So you just sign up for a free account at echeck.lacounty.gov, look up your address, upload your architectural drawings in PDF format, and then you will receive a report showing compliance or any necessary corrections. Lastly, you just upload the link to the report with your rebuild project application. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, effective Tuesday, Calabasas One-Stop Center will have a new location just down the street from the old location. So for many of you who have visited the old Calabasas field office, it is a new home just down the street on Agora. Next slide, please. I just want to very quickly mention the county-wide community wildfire protection plan. So it is a voluntary community-driven document intended to provide community-focused fire prevention strategies for unincorporated at-risk communities. The county will be scheduling upcoming meetings and workshops with communities to prioritize projects and identify areas for wildlife mitigation or wildfire mitigation. For more information and to sign up for updates, you can visit the webpage displayed here or visit our website. Next slide. And that concludes planning's portion of the presentation. For more information, you can visit recovery.lacounty.gov. And if you have any questions, please come by either of our one-stop centers or email recovery@planning.lacounty.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so that everyone knows, we are recording this and it will be shared with the community, so you can reference it later, and we can make sure that we get you the information from these slides if you want it as a separate slide deck, but it will be recorded in a video that can be accessed. So next up from Public Works, we have Madad Darakshani. Did I totally butcher that or did I get close?
You did excellent. Good evening, Supervisor, and good evening, community leaders, HOA members, residents. My name is Madad Darakshani from Public Works Department, and I'm joined tonight by Assistant Deputy Directors, Ms. Sierra Barnett, and also Mr. Yona Halpert. I'm going to be talking about Public Works 101 very briefly and quickly. So Public Works Department has over 25 divisions, of which 16 divisions are engineering divisions. And my primary responsibility as county liaison is to make sure to connect the community with public works services. So next slide, please. The first category of the services, business, building, and safety services. As you know, we do plan checks, issue permits, and also inspect during construction. We have code enforcement for unpermitted construction, overgrown vegetation, or yard storage, in-operator vehicles on private properties. Also, we work very closely with regional planning on zoning matters like parking requirements, residential to commercial conversions, and also oak tree protections, and also it's drip lines. Next, please. Road maintenance services. These are services that will be performed on public roads or within public road right of way. If I want to explain right away, it is from the back of the sidewalk on one side of the street to the back of the sidewalk on the other side. This width is road right of way. So we do pavement maintenance, pothole patching. Every time it rains, we get a lot of potholes. So we do pothole patching, pavement digouts. Pavement digouts is when we have the severe alligators within the pavement that we cannot patch it. So we will remove the pavement and put a new pavement there. Pavement preservation project, which is a very environmental friendly projects that we do this year, like cold in place recycling. Mined concrete repair. These are all the concrete work, or known as PCC or Portland cement concrete, that we do, like sidewalk repairs, ADA or curb ramps, also wheelchair ramps, curb and gutters. Usually when we do road projects, we do the concrete work first, and then we do paving project. We have a street sweeping, tree trimming, we remove the dead trees, and also we plant few more. Guardrail repairs and emergency responses. Next, please. We have also other municipal services, catch basin cleaning in dry and wet season. Usually, if we have a heavy winter, we clean our catch basin 3 times. In November and December, 1 time, January and February, 1 time, also March and April, 1 time. In the dry season, which is summertime, usually around July, we clean our catch basins also during dry season. Sewer services. We have formed a huge district. We have 38 member cities and also the entire unincorporated areas within our sewer district, known as Consolidated Sewer Maintenance District. We have pavement markings and striping. Usually on the road, as you go towards the stop sign, you see pavement marking on the road. It says stop ahead, or it shows arrow to the left, or it shows arrow to the right. The street sign installation. As you could see on the picture on the side, all the signs, traffic signs, we install them. If they get knocked down, we replace them. Trash pickups, which includes also bulky items pickup. Some contracts, they allow 4 to maybe 6 times per year bulky items. Some contracts, they allow more. Illegal dumping. As you can see on the picture on the side, we post a sign for illegal dumping. Usually bad actors, they bring their materials and put it in our road right away, and we have to clean them up. Weed abatement. We do that on Mountains Road a lot because as it's required by fire department, from the edge of the pavement up to 10 feet, we have to send our crew with the weed whackers to get rid of the weeds. Also, we have graffiti abatement. We do that within 24 hours from the time that receive requests to remove graffiti. And I try to be brief, and that will end my presentation.
Thank you very much. Next up, I know we have questions regarding the lid policy and lid requirements. So I'm going to turn it to Rochelle Tacconi. Did I say that right?
You did. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you, Supervisor, for having us. And I just want to briefly touch on the LID requirements. I know this has been a pain point for many in the rebuilding process. So I wanted to present exactly what the intent is and how to have a quick solution to LID to move forward. Next slide, please. What is LID? LID is low impact development. And mainly it is talking about best management practices that reduce runoff and pollutants by managing runoff on site before it goes into the storm drains. For small scale residential, there are 7 main LID options that are quite easy to implement and may not need the expertise of a civil engineer to implement on your plans. And so for the small scale option, you would only need to pick 2 of the LID options to be in compliance. Next slide, please. The benefits of LID, as many of you may know, if you to reduce, replenish, and reuse. So replenish groundwater supplies if that is feasible within the area. I know many of the properties in the Sunset Mesa area may not want to do that because of some geotechnical concerns in the area. So that may not be the most feasible option for your property. Mainly improving water quality in accordance with the Clean Water Act and in compliance with the Regional Water Quality Control Board requirements for water quality is really why we definitely encourage that LID requirements be implemented. It also preserves natural site characteristics and minimizes downstream impacts due to flooding and water quality as well. Next slide, please. So just as some examples of LID, and many of the properties already have things like landscaping where you can route the downspouts into a rain garden or a planter area, disconnecting impervious surfaces. Say you have a driveway and want to slope it into a grass type area. That is a very easy way to comply with LID. So these are two, as I mentioned, there are 7 different BMPs that you can do. These are 2 of them. I'm going to go on to some other examples. Next slide, please. Downspout routing is a general BMP that can be used. Best management practice, as I mentioned before, is BMP. So you can have rain barrels. If you have, if you would like to use rain barrels, then you can put them in series, or you can put them under different downspouts, whichever you would like to do. It's as simple as putting 4 50-gallon rain barrels under those downspouts, and that is one of your BMPs. That is your compliance. I have also seen many use planter boxes. You can put them within your landscape area, or you can also route your downspouts right into them, of course, with waterproofing, making sure there is no infiltration into your foundations. But again, planter boxes are a great way, and they would have to be designed for a volume of 200 gallons to infiltrate through that planter box. Next slide, please. The examples that may or may not require a civil engineer's involvement, one being a dry well. A dry well is a solution that we see often, but then if you do a dry well, you may need to do percolation testing and verify that it has the correct infiltration rate in order to sustain that 200 gallons and be designed in that manner. So a dry well, while a great BMP, may not be the quickest solution in order for you to move forward in a streamlined process with your redevelopment. The other idea is pervious pavement. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Pervious pavement. You can definitely do pervious pavement. A lot of properties do that. You can do it with or without an underdrain. So if you do have an underdrain, then it would not require any additional percolation testing. 50% of your pavement on your lot would have to be this pervious pavement. Or if you do it without an underdrain, then we would have to make sure that it does have the proper infiltration rate. Next slide, please. There are 2 BMPs left. The ones here, which we see also very often, is planting 2 trees. One would have to be from the drought tolerant planting list. Of course, any landscape would need to comply with your fuel mod requirements, since this is all in a very high fire hazard severity zone. If you do choose the option of 2 trees, they would need to be planted no more than 10 feet from an impervious surface. This does not mean 10 feet from your home. This does not mean 10 feet necessarily from your driveway, but any impervious surface. So if you have some flat work in the rear area of your yard or side yards or something of that nature, then you can definitely put those trees within 10 feet of those impervious surfaces. The last BMP that I have not listed or given an example of, because we wouldn't typically see it in a very fire hazard severity zone, would be a green roof. that is because usually green roofs are not allowed in the very high fire hazard severity zone, but as I mentioned, there are 7 BMPs for small scale residential, and that would be one of them. Next slide, please. One of the other pain points that we have heard of with respect to low impact development, the misconception that, of course, it always has to be designed by a civil engineer, which is not always the case, but that you have to record a covenant for maintenance of these BMPs. What we have done to streamline that process is, yes, this covenant is still required to run with the property, but it is not required to be recorded until later in construction. So I know there's a lot of hardship to get notaries. There's a lot of hardship to get things recorded and returned in a timely manner. So if you have the compliance on your plans, and then the only outstanding item for full compliance is the covenant, we defer that until the building is ready for final. So you can submit it at any time before final, and we would definitely accept that. So that is the very quick overview of LID. Next slide, please. As Brian mentioned, we have moved more or less. We have one last day in the current one-stop center, and that is tomorrow. Monday is a county holiday, so all our offices will be closed on Monday. So starting Tuesday the 14th, we will be in the new location at 27001 Agora Road, Suite 250. When you go into that driveway, one thing you will have to understand is that the entrance is around the rear, so follow the signage in that parking lot. And the office number has not changed, so please call the 818-880-4150. Any of my staff will be happy to assist you, or you can contact me directly for any questions that you might have.
And one question that I do have regarding this is we've heard, obviously, Sunset Mesa is adjacent to the city of Los Angeles Palisades area. The city, is our policy, our LID policy, the same as the city of Los Angeles?
It is not. The city of Los Angeles is under a different permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And so their requirements regarding low impact development are a bit different than ours. And from what I've heard, in some instances, they can be a bit more stringent. So the hope is to alleviate some of the concern that it is very difficult to comply, and in an effort to be more sustainable, that we could offer these solutions in a quick way.
Okay. Well, I know that there are concerns regarding LID and it continuing to apply here. So how can we provide some flexibility and assistance? I know you just outlined some very concrete examples, which make very clear how people can comply. But how are we being flexible to work with people on this issue?
So one thing that I highly recommend is, if you are struggling with the requirement or need ideas of ways to comply, then definitely visit our one-stop centers or give our office a call or give me a call. I am happy to walk with you through some solutions so it doesn't seem so overwhelming. That is one way we can definitely do it. Deferring that recorded document is definitely one way that we're not holding up the process as well. I know there is some confusion, I will say, within the county, because we have some deferred requirements, I should say, in the Eaton area versus the Palisades. We are implementing LAD very similar to the way it is deferred in Altadena. The way that was written is, if it's a like for like, then anything prior to 2009, and 2009 is because that's when the LID ordinance came in play initially, would not have to comply with LID. So really, if you are keeping that same foundation, you don't have to do anything. If you are completely replacing that foundation, you were built after 2009, then you're going to replace the BMPs that you already had in place. If you're adding a little bit of impervious area, if it's less than 50%, well, then it's what you had before, or you may be exempt. So all of those little things.
And that's consistent throughout the county areas?
The only difference is in Eaton, we waived it completely for anybody built prior to 2009.
Understood. Okay. Our next up, we have the public health noise ordinance variance presentation from Charlene Contreras.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity today, Supervisor, to talk to the community. I'm here to talk to you about construction hours. You can go to the next slide. So LA County currently prohibits construction activity during the hours of 8 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. Monday through Saturday, and also prohibits construction activity on Sundays all day. The code also prohibits certain noise levels between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Monday through Saturday and any time on Sunday and holidays. In January, Public Health was directed by the board to grant a variance allowing construction noise from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to include Sundays and holidays. Next slide. And so now we have, there's additional opportunity now to expand the variance further to support construction efforts. So we're doing, public health is really seeking feedback from you to determine if you would support extending the work hours within the burn area. Of course, with clear noise level standards that do minimize the impacts and ensure that there is a predictable work schedule. Some of these considerations, are to continue to allow construction for 7 days. And it could be to extend working hours to allow for some limited noise activities that can occur earlier in the morning or later in the evening. We've developed a quick online survey here to gauge the community, to gauge how you feel, to get some feedback. Gather input on how these potential changes to construction hours might affect you. You can scan the QR code here on the screen and take the survey and let us know how you feel. We're really trying to take your lived experiences into consideration here when making these decisions. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you today about. So please, if you take some time to take our survey and let your neighbors and friends know that they could take the survey as well. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. And next up, to round out our presentations, and then we'll get into questions, we have an update from LA County Fire, Chief Duvali and Assistant Chief Stillwagon.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight and sharing your time with us. You're very valuable to us, and we want to get you back in your homes as soon as possible. I don't see my slide show up, but I will go right into it. There we go. Thank you. The things that we get the most questions on right now is water and access. For the Sunset Mesa area, that is not going to be an issue. We have 1,250 gallons per minute of water in the water system, and we have no relevant access issues. So everybody will be able to rebuild back without any delays on either of those two fronts. We do want to encourage the rebuilding process to take into high consideration the fuel modification plans you've known as Zone 0, which is coming out by the State Board of Forestry. But Los Angeles County Fire Department actually put those requirements into our 2022 fire code. So that's already been developed and the rules are in place. So we shouldn't have any delays in permitting in that portion. But what we do want to consider is between that 5-foot section, 0 to 5 feet, having no vegetation between the home and where our grass line starts or our bushes, except for potted plants, small potted plants, things we can move away from the structure during a wildland fire. But when we get towards Zone 1, what we want to do is keep the trees and the branches and the limbs cut back 10 feet from the home. We saw a lot of trees propagating fire onto the homes during the firestorm. So we just want to make sure that we're taking that into consideration when we're rebuilding back stronger and more resilient. So most of the homes in this area fall within that 30-foot zone up to 100-foot zone. Just remember, in that 30-foot to 100-foot range, what we're just looking for is that our trees are approximately 30 feet apart from one another, and that our ground fuels are kept low to the ground. So we're looking more for those grass beds or those ornamental vegetations that are lower to the ground, so that fire cannot ladder up into the main structure itself. Plan reviews. Currently, we are maintaining our 10 business day turnaround for initial submittals and 5 business days for resubmittals. We are increasing staff, as Supervisor had talked about earlier. We do have a plan to split the mountain, if you will, to put a one-stop in the city of Malibu and also in Calabasas. So we're going to increase staffing in Calabasas for our unincorporated areas, and then we're going to add another office in Malibu. This is coming both with plan checkers and with a captain and badge personnel to go out and do our fire inspections. So as we enter towards the later part of this year, as more construction develops, we do not see any time delays on any front. We do have a surge staffing plan in place right now out of our Commerce Fire Prevention Office, where when we get close to that 10-day mark, we are increasing the plan reviews at this office, ensuring that we meet those turnaround times to our community and to the residents. So we already talked about the one stop in off Agora Road and that transition. The other Malibu one stop is listed there. So thank you for your time tonight, and I wanted to keep it short and brief. Back to you, Supervisor.
All right, well, we're going to kick off the questions with you. First, we have a question regarding our fuel modification policy and what's involved, because there are some people who are considering whether they rebuild based on what the county's going to do differently. So can you walk us through what our fuel modification process is going to be going forward?
Yes, so in our fuel modification process, that's actually going to be handled by our forestry division. We're putting 4 additional staff up into the area permanently that are going to be able to speed up our plan review process and be directly available to everyone moving forward. So as we move into the new office building, those personnel should be coming on board now that we have the space for them. As far as fuel modification itself, there is a plan review process, and we submit with our forestry division. They review the plans much like a building plan review, and then they correspond back and forth with the customer. Really, the fuel modification is back to those zones that we talked about. So the zone 0, having no vegetation between the home itself and within 5 feet of the structure. And then from 5 feet to 30 feet, going up to 3 inches of grass or ornamental vegetation, and then having small bushes or planter boxes or whatever the customer would like at that level. The forestry division is also going to be posting on our website a no plant list, and to help the customers choose what they are planting. And then we're also reaching out to the nurseries to allow them to better help the customers. When you go to buy plants, what should we be buying? What should we be putting around our areas of, some of our most precious valuables, our homes? So those are improvements that we will be making. Then as we get from that 30-foot to the 100-foot mark, that additional 70 feet, we just want to make sure we have no dead or dying or pine needles or any type of items on the ground, grass litter that's going to get into that place. To again propagate fast fire spread into the home or into the structure and from home to home. So that was a big contributor also. So then after that, we go from 100 to 200 feet. That's where we have our natural vegetation. We want to see those bushes out there. We want to see that good cosmetic look along the hillsides. It prevents erosion. It prevents hillsides from sloughing off. That we do want, but we do want to limit up the dead and dying in those fuel beds to make sure that, again, they're healthy, live fuel beds, and we're not propagating that fire from the brush areas down into the homes. So that's really what we're looking at. We're looking to get a lot more interactive with the customers here in the near future, just due to the increased staffing. So I think every property is going to be on a case-by-case basis, and that individual one-on-one consultation is going to need to be there. And I don't think we've been very good at that up to this point, just owning that from our side. So we're looking forward to communicating better with our public and making those changes.
I was out with Secretary Crowfoot yesterday looking at some of the fuel modification that is happening in partnership with the state that is directed by County Fire. And so I do know that there's work being done currently. There are goats that are deployed. We saw some of the masticators out there. There's the green machine that's out there that's able to climb some of the incline areas. So I know that Fire has directed where the projects that are currently underway and how they are to be prioritized. I know that Fire is also asking community members if there are areas in and around your neighborhood that you want paid particular attention to make sure that you communicate that with to us. And of course, there will be by the end of the year, we expect to have direction from the state on Zone 0, and so there will be more policy that comes into play that the county fire will have to enforce. So I know that there's a lot of work being done in that regard. And for the person who asked that question, if we didn't touch on the specific issue within fuel modification that you wanted us to ask, please follow up. I did hear, though, from at least one resident that where you said it takes 10 days, for them, it's taken 3 months. So, where are you? How are you accounting for, it sounds like you might think that that's an outlier example, but for this resident, it's, definitely their experience that it's taken longer than 10 days. So how do we fix that? And how do we make sure that we're sticking to the numbers that you presented in your presentation in terms of, our timeline?
That's an excellent question. So we are actively tracking this within our electronic system weekly, tracking it daily, and reporting out weekly to all the managers with Public Works, Regional Planning, and Fire. And that's a good collective effort that we've done now that we've streamlined the permitting process into one flow or workflow. If the customer that has that issue could drop that address into the chat, I will work on that first thing tomorrow morning to get an answer for that. So if I can just get the address, I can look everything up and call you personally and make sure that we're on target and or see what the issues or holdups are to make sure that we accomplish that.
Yeah, they've also texted me directly. So if you prefer to not put it in the chat and you just want to text me, I'll make sure it gets to the fire. Okay, I'm going to go to regional planning next. We have had a couple questions regarding the paid permit fees. They paid permit fees before the waiver applied, or in one case, somebody has submitted to get a refund. So how can you get a refund? It sounds like yes. How do they get a refund if they've already submitted their fees for the permits?
So you absolutely can get a refund if you are eligible for the fee waiver that you already paid. If that is the question, then you can come by one of our one-stop centers or pick up the phone, call us. I can drop the number in the chat, or just email recovery@planning.lacounty.gov on recovery, not to be confused with our website, recovery.lacounty.gov. If you go underneath the rebuilding drop-down menu, there's a web page entitled Fee Waivers and Refunds that walks through step by step how to get a fee waiver or a fee refund. And as for processing times, I know our budget and accounting section is working around the clock, like Public Works is as well. But if you are experiencing delays, either pick up the phone, call us. Again, I'll put that number in the chat, or drop us a line to our email address.
Yeah, there were two questions. One, can you explained how to get the refunds, so thank you for that. And another person said that they hadn't, they applied in July for their refund and they still hadn't gotten it. So do you have a sense of what timeline that's happening on?
I unfortunately do not. David may or may not, but I know that one thing that has occurred, it's more of an outlier, but what has happened is so applicants um, were applying on behalf of property owners, so architects, contractors, other design professionals. And so, since they are the ones who paid the fees, even though the property owner paid the, say, architectural designer, um, and then the designer went on to pay the initial fees before they were retroactively waived. And then some people have had difficulty getting the refund. And this is like, I mean, hearsay, but cases I've heard of. So that's one thing to just be mindful of, that the refund goes to whoever paid the fee.
Yeah, and I would say too, we're processing them very quickly. We've returned a great deal of those. And so if you haven't gotten it, certainly you should have if you applied in July. Reach out to us individually. We're happy to look into it. That's not right. You should have gotten it by now. So yeah, let us do some research for you and follow up.
Please do.
All right. So our next question, someone indicated that their documents were burned. Obviously, that they need that they've been asked to submit as part of the process for permitting. You can go to the county registrar recorder to get support in securing those documents that were already on record with the county. If there's anything that the county wouldn't have on file, you had indicated, I think, that in 2023 you submitted them, so they should be still on file with the county. Going to the registrar recorder would be what we would recommend. If you go there and you get stuck, reach out to my office and we'll help follow up and connect dots to get you through that. There was a question around how can people water, or how can any parkway trees be watered if there's no water connection? I'm going to throw that to Public Works. Where's our Public Works rep?
I'm sorry, what was the question, Supervisor?
The question has to do with the requirement to have our parkway trees watered, obviously, but there aren't water connections yet in this area. So how can people be expected to how can we be expected to have our parkway trees watered when there aren't water connections?
We can have our road maintenance look into it and see if we can connect and install a meter. And that will be a little bit costly, but we can do that and install a meter and run the wire line to water the improvements there.
Okay. There was another question that their residents are seeing Public Works staff in the neighborhood. What are the Public Works projects that are happening in the neighborhood right now?
The road maintenance crew and the engineering department and the engineering staff are looking at the roads out there, and they're trying to come up with ways and engineering drawings to improve the roads and also sidewalks and curbs and gutters.
Okay. And are you posting what the ongoing projects are that Public Works is tackling in the neighborhood somewhere on one of the websites that's tracking these improvements?
We will do that. We will do that. Sorry if we haven't done it, but we will do it.
Okay, I think it's helpful, people go back to their neighborhood to look at their property and see what's going on, and I think it's helpful for them to know who's in the neighborhood and what work they're doing. Um, I also want to mention for the month of October, the LA County Fire Forestry Division has a nursery where you can go to get saplings to help with the 2-tree requirement that is part of LID. So if you are looking to include trees as part of your redevelopment and it helps to satisfy the LID requirement, we are offering help during this month. You can get more information from my team about that if you don't already have it. Next up, this question is for public health. This is from a resident who gratefully still has a home to live in this area. However, they're concerned about the modification of construction hours and what that's going to mean for impacts to them. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And so this survey that we have is to directly get the feedback from those that are living that are still living in the community, because the noise, the construction noise will be impacting you. And right now the noise and the activity can take place between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. There are still standards that they have to abide by. It's 85 decibels. And so depending on how close you are to a construction site, you're going to hear that noise a lot louder. And so that's what we're trying to gauge on whether, if there's support enough in your community to expand those hours in order to kind of give the construction companies a little bit more hours so that that rebuilding takes place faster than current times allow right now. So again, we're trying to get that feedback from you.
Okay. So if you are concerned about that potential change, right now we haven't changed the hours. It's 7 to 6.
Correct.
And if you're concerned about the potential hours, make sure you fill out the survey so your information can be recorded. Back to fire. Will residents who don't remove trees within 5 feet of their property get fined? Or within 5 feet of their structure?
Yes. That is a great question. No, we're not looking to find people. We're not even looking to remove those trees. We just want to trim them up to be 10 feet away from the property. So if there's a large tree overhanging a home, we just want to trim that up to where it's 10 feet away from the roof line and or the side of the house.
Okay. I'm going to go next to planning. Does the fee waiver apply to homes that were only partially damaged that require a permit to repair?
Sorry, I'm just getting my video on there. If the home, it depends what you mean by partially damaged. I mean, short answer, yes. If it's you're not proposing any additions or amendment to the building envelope, then it will not require planning review. You can just jump straight to building and safety. But yeah, the fee waiver and building and safety, feel free to chime in here. But the fee waiver it relates to all permitting costs associated with the fire.
Okay. I'm going to go back to Public Works. We've got a lot of questions on LID. So, oh, there we go. Okay.
I'm here.
So given that this neighborhood is adjacent to the ocean and we need to prevent runoff and pollution, they have several questions. Can you clarify how LID requirements are different if your home was built before 2009 or if you are able to keep in place your old foundation?
That is a great question. So the reason 2009 is the year that is mentioned is because that is the year that the LID ordinance first was put into place. So the thought process is that anything prior to 2009 wouldn't have had that compliance yet. Anything after would have already. So it goes in line with the like for like idea. You replace exactly what was. And the second part of that question, I'm sorry, was what?
And I got a few more follow-ups after this one, but the next question is if you're able to keep in place your old foundation.
Right. So one thing that we are considering with LID is that if you are not increasing your impervious surface, so if you are just taking out what was, putting back exactly what that same foundation is, then you may not need to comply with LID, again, pre-2009 versus existing. So the way we're looking at that is in the MPDS permit, there is a certain requirement that says LID is triggered for small scale residential if you are adding more than 50% of your impervious surface. If you are shifting, if you're adding, if you're changing your line and grade, doing something like that, then we want to make sure you're not increasing your runoff in any way. So we would consider those in a case by case basis.
This community was largely built in the 1960s, so so I think, that requirement, largely wouldn't apply in this case. So
Correct,
I think
yes.
that's why the question exists. So it sounds like that in some cases it may be that if they don't have to replace the old foundation, that they would be exempt from that, and you're going to.
Absolutely. And that's how I've advised staff to implement it. So it is still in line with our permit. We're still in compliance, but it helps the residents out.
Okay. And what if
That way.
their soils engineer said that additional on-site water storage is not good for the slope stability?
And we see that often. So that's where we talk about infiltration and replenishing groundwater. So in those cases, I often see where it is a closed bottom planter box. So it acts as an infiltration device and then discharges to the street, excuse me, or a rain barrel where it actually collects the water without having any infiltration or impact to the stability of the soil.
And what if they don't have the physical space for these LID requirements on the property?
Case by case situation, come and talk with us. We'll see if there are solutions. Typically, there are ways to do that, especially since fire department generally requires a 5-foot walk around. These barrels are definitely not 5 feet in width. So usually they are able to fit within the limits of those properties pretty easily.
Well, I think it's, I know you outlined a lot of options, and so I really would encourage you, as people will come to you, since you're asking them to really work with people. This is a neighborhood that was largely, in their minds, almost completely built out. The policies never contemplated that, hundreds of homes would be wiped out in this way.
Of
And
course.
so any sort of flexibility that we can offer to people, I think is really appreciated, especially given, that with zone zero compliance and all of the things that people are trying to manage, we don't want this to become an obstacle. We certainly want to be sustainable in our recovery, but we don't want it to be an obstacle to getting people back home. Okay, and lastly, on this topic, can you remind us of the number of options people have for compliance and what the two easiest usually are? What would you say?
So the two easiest usually are downspout routing, which you can choose rain barrels, or putting in a planter box, which would be like a flow through planter box so it doesn't infiltrate. And then we have general details that you could pop on the plan. The other is, as you mentioned, the trees, which is great that they have an option to get the trees free. So I would definitely recommend taking advantage of that. Those are the two quickest options from what I've seen.
Okay. I'm going to give you a break and I'm going to go back to public health. What are the county's plans to mitigate mosquito infestations in the coming years due to standing water on burn lots with swimming pools, spas, etc.?
Yeah, we've been working with the mosquito abatement district out there, and they've been monitoring the pools that are sitting on lots that were burned down. So those are really, like, we're monitoring those, through the season. So far as we get into the cold season, we don't expect to see any of the mosquito breeding, but come, February, March, where it starts to get warm again, we'll be working with that mosquito abatement district.
Okay. I know that that's a concern, and it's this question says the coming years. Hopefully, we're not letting there be standing water for years. So it would also is that I would expect that's something that the department is also addressing.
That's correct. Yeah, we'll be watching and monitoring until the rebuild happens. We do know who the property owners are, and so we're in contact with them too. So
Okay.
we'll be monitoring.
I have I have another question that's come in. Just sort of generally, in this case, it says that this is happening with building and safety, but this particular resident is raising an issue that I think happens in different cases, and I think it's helpful to address generally that their team gets is going through the process. They get comments with they fix everything based on the comments, and then they go through another set of revisions, and then after 2 or 3 revisions, new recommendations come in that weren't referenced in the previous revisions. So how are we making sure that we're not that we're sort of catching things on the first go round? Obviously, the more time that people spend in the revision process, it's time, it's money, and it's also frustration because they think that they're getting close to solving something and then new things come up. So how are we working? Maybe I'll throw that to planning to start. How are we working to make sure that we're being all inclusive in the comments that we're giving to people? And then, because I know that we're making every effort to have a streamlined process. But I know that, obviously we have to make sure that we're crossing all our T's and dotting our I's. But you can imagine from somebody who's trying to rebuild, and this may be the first time they're ever having to rebuild, ever having to build at all, that this is a very excruciating process to go through. So how are we streamlining that effort? Okay, public works.
Supervisor, if you don't mind, I'll take that question. So I have heard a lot of those similar concerns of additional corrections coming up later on in the process after the first, second, and maybe third go around of plan check. And while we do work hard to make sure all of those corrections are implemented in the first go around, one thing we are doing to try to prevent that moving forward is that in the new unified permit process, all the departments are reviewing the first set of plans all together, so that reduces the potential for any changes from any requirements from many of the departments to trigger potential additional comments from any given plan checker. So we definitely do recognize that additional comments can come into play if there are changes made along the process, but we are striving to make sure it is a complete set of comments on the first go around.
Okay. I know that that's incredibly meaningful, for people who are really trying to get through this process. And if that doesn't, if that general answer doesn't specifically address your question, because I've gotten it in a couple different places, please do make sure to follow up with the Department of Public Works. You can always track and make sure that you reach out to our office so we can be tracking these questions and concerns. Obviously, we're trying to identify where pinch points are to make sure that things do keep moving. We do want to get people home as quickly as possible. I'm checking in to make sure I'm not repeating any questions here. For Public Works, again, most of us do need to replace our foundations. So what assistance is available from the county via LID? Will there be a fact sheet, a webinar? How can people get more information about the LID requirements?
So we do have fact sheets and information within the Public Works website. I do know we are also working on a webinar in addition with the geotechnical requirements to help assist those in looking for design assistance with respect to LID. But as always, feel free to contact my office and we will walk you through any of those requirements that you are running into challenges on.
Okay, a couple more questions
Sure.
for you. Regarding LID for well, actually, I'm going to go back to what types of trees are being required. Sunset Mesa CCNRs and large trees could block the view corridors that have been established. So what are the types of trees?
So there is no, sorry, there is no particular regulation on which trees, except for one does have to be drought tolerant. I will say that in most cases, if they do propose to say put a giant pine tree in, we are encouraging them not to do that, because we have had concerns from neighbors of please don't let them do that because that is going to obstruct our view. So our staff is aware and trying to guide appropriately if they are aware of that species and know that it's going to be some overgrown tree that will obstruct views.
Okay. For our next question, I think, is for fire. Are rain barrels allowed in the 5-foot fire walkway?
There we go. At this time, we are allowing rain barrels within the 5-foot walkway. We will have to see what happens with the Zone 0 requirement from the state requirements, but at this time, LA County Fire is allowing that.
Okay. All right. The next question is, will security patrols remain in Sunset Mesa throughout the rebuilding process, and for how long? We are committed to making sure that security patrols continue. We will continue to contract with the service providers that we have, unless you have identified that there are issues, or some other method comes into play. But right now, we know that security is an utmost concern. We know that this enhanced security also alleviates our sheriff's department from some of the challenges that they're facing across the neighborhoods. And so we want to make sure that this service continues to be provided to keep the neighborhood safe. And we have heard thus far that it's been a welcome addition. If you have a different kind of experience, we want to know that too. For public works and for fire, what are the water tanks in our neighborhood, and can they be used to fight fires?
Supervisor, for this question, I have to discuss this with our Waterworks division, and they're not available tonight. I can reply back tomorrow.
Okay. So the existing water facilities, you're not sure if we're using them to fight fires?
According to what I've heard from our Waterworks division, both tanks are there to fight fires, and they're full. So, but I need to verify with them.
Okay. Does our fire department have clarity on that? Are you using the reservoirs in the Sunset Mesa area currently?
So I would have to defer to Public Works on that for the water district.
All right. Well, then we will work to get that answer. But I just want to make sure I'm testing all, all up.
Yeah, Kira with Public Works. Sorry, my camera's not working. But yeah, there are 2 water tanks at the end of Kingsport. And those water tanks are owned and operated by District 29 for domestic use and fire protection. They provide water to customers in District 29, and District 29 does monitor the system 24/7 with remote monitoring via SCADA. And these tanks were used during the Palisades fire.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. And I know that from fire's perspective and from Public Works perspective, we've consistently heard that water redundancies were critical in how we served the county area, that the county area wasn't without water. There may have been reduced pressure at times because of how many places we were tapping in to access that water, but we weren't without water because of how we established water redundancies to serve the region. So I'm glad to hear that these facilities play a role in how we serve the community and how we fight fires. God forbid they return. For fire department, will housing that is already standing need to comply with Zone 0 requirements?
The State Board of Forestry hasn't ruled on that item yet, so to be determined. Currently under the LA County Fire Code, no. Under the LA County Fire Code, it is currently for new construction only.
Okay. And I know in speaking with the secretary that I raised this issue because we consistently hear how concerned residents are that there have been some conversations at the state level that sound like very draconian changes are coming down the pipeline. And I very clearly expressed to the secretary how important it is from a county perspective, and specifically county fire, that we have flexibility, that they're giving us grace in terms of how we implement this. Often these areas, some of the changes that are being proposed change things that are the reason people want to live in some of these neighborhoods. And so we want to make sure that, of course, we are prioritizing safety, but doing so in a thoughtful way. And I know that we've had many conversations from our office with your department about that. And we are also combinedly having that conversation with the state. So I just want to share with our leadership here from the county today that we are getting a lot of comments about the potential for trees to be blocking view corridors, which have typically been protected, and how the homeowners association has operated, how the community has been built out. So while we know we love trees for a clean air and for so many other reasons, we also need to be mindful of the guidelines that are governing the neighborhoods and you know what those potential impacts are. So making sure that we are working with our neighborhoods and how we bring trees into the built environment is important to the residents. A question for Public Works: what is the turnaround time for ordering utilities and applications needed to avoid extra fees to reconnect?
Is this to reconnect water line?
Yeah, it says to order, what is the turnaround time for ordering utilities and applications needed to avoid extra fees to reconnect each? Yes. So any of the utilities that need to be reconnected, what is the turnaround time and what are the applications needed so they don't have extra fees to make all of this happen?
This is another question I need to investigate. I think it'll be a 10 days turnaround, but I need to confirm that. I need to get back to you on that one.
Okay, well, and when you get that information, not only should we get back to this individual resident, we should also post it publicly so people know that, because obviously we don't want people incurring any additional fees that are unnecessary. As quickly as we can get that information, for both water and for power as well. And I know this area is served by Edison, but we should make sure that that we're working to get that information as quickly as possible. Rachel, do you have an answer for that?
I would request a clarification. Is this in respect to temporary housing, or is this for permanent utility corrections for a rebuild?
The question wasn't clear, but if I get that clarification, I will, if I get more specificity, I will let you know.
So just as a general, sorry for interrupting, but if I may, for temporary housing, all of those utility connections are part of your express permit for temporary housing. Unfortunately, temporary housing is not part of the fee waiver qualifications. However, if it is part of your rebuild and part of your permits, all of those utility connection permits are part of your rebuild permit and qualify for that fee waiver.
Okay. For Public Works again, Sunset Mesa has a high water table. So how does LID and water percolation interact with a high water table, clay substrate, and slopes?
Again, a great question. So in those instances, solutions such as infiltration type planter boxes, dry wells, or permeable pavers that require infiltration are not the best solution because it could affect the stability. So we would encourage you to choose other BMP solutions.
Okay. For fire, is there someone at the fire department who can discuss concerns that a neighbor's tree is a fire hazard to another property owner? How do we address concerns like that?
Yes, there's two pathways. One is to go to the area office at which our fire inspectors can go out to the site and talk to the homeowner and look at the specific problem or item that they're addressing, and then give recommendations. So I think that's the best direct path. So we do have badge personnel, our fire inspectors, at the new One Stop. They are available at counter hours in the morning, and I would encourage the customer to take that route as a direct path.
Okay. I see that there are questions around crime statistics. Obviously, we don't have the sheriff's department with us tonight, but we can make sure to get the neighborhood the latest crime statistics from from the sheriff's department. And I see that there's also a question about police patrols. I don't mean to suggest that the sheriff's department is not patrolling the neighborhood, but I think the kind of consistent presence that the neighborhood is looking for and certainly deserves, that we believe we will continue to uh, provide the security patrols, the enhanced security patrols that have alleviated at least some concern as it relates to those issues. For Public Works, when will all of the utilities be back online, particularly gas?
Again, I guess I don't have the information on this one. I need to verify that and get back to you on that.
Okay. Again, this is another one that we should be posting publicly so people know, and we can help manage expectations. Um, uh, we're getting a lot. I just want to acknowledge that we are getting a lot of expressed concerns around high insurance charges and concerns around insurance coming back into the market to protect the neighborhoods, and at what cost. I know that this is a concern that we continue to hear from residents, while the county doesn't have a role to play in how insurance companies work with you all directly. That's an insurance commissioner role. And a state, more of a state authority. We do know that this is a concern for our residents, and we are proactively convening in partnership with the Consul General from the UK. Convening in November that brings together. They had an insurance crisis after the floods that they experienced in the early 2000s, and it caused their government to take a look not only from the private sector, and what insurance companies needed to come back into their market, but what public policy needed to change and how they governed land use to bring insurance back into the market. Obviously, we know it's in other countries, so they have other policies that govern how they operate. But I do believe that there will be a lot of lessons learned that they have that they can share with us. We are inviting all of our relevant leaders to be part of that conversation. Secretary Crowfoot expressed interest in joining us yesterday for that conversation to make sure that our state leadership is at the table and understanding what could be helpful, because we obviously don't want to only make sure that you can get access to insurance, but that you can also do so at an affordable rate, because we know future insurability is another form of affordability going forward. That's why we're looking at things that, in terms of your rebuild process, will help the insurance companies know that you are taking seriously your role in protecting your property, and doing all of the home hardening and all of the best practices that we know about and that we can implement right now. And so they know that when they are working with you to insure your home, that you've taken as many precautions as possible. So I know that there's a lot in that answer. Again, we are, the county is not the lead authority on insurance, but we are using our platform to make sure that all of the relevant insurance companies that we have contact with know the concerns that our residents have been facing, the frustration you all are feeling, and how you want more relief and advocacy on your behalf to make sure that you are protected going forward. For Public Works and Regional Planning, we have another question. What steps are you taking to ensure that the permit review timelines don't increase? And what are you doing to get staff on board? I know that we talked about staffing up generally, but how are we bringing people on board? I know that some of that is through a contracting process, but as more I indicated at the beginning, we have about the number of potential properties that could apply. It seems like about 20% or so have applied so far in the District 3 area. So as more applications come in, how are we working to make sure that that doesn't turn into extreme slowdown in your processing?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we established early on a dedicated team, primarily made up of existing staff so that we could get on this and be dedicated to it. Over time, we've been slowly bringing on contract employees, and we have really accelerated that over the last month and a half. So in the next couple of weeks, we're bringing on an additional 15 people that will be solely dedicated to this, with the opportunity to bring on additional staff as we need to, as application numbers go up.
Okay, and Public Works?
So I can comment from the Calabasas One Stop staffing. We have hired additional staff to keep up with the demand and currently still adhere to the 10-day first review turnaround time and the 5-day turnaround time as well. We are bringing on additional staff as we see a increase in submittals.
Okay, and I need some clarification on something you said earlier.
Sure.
In case somebody heard it, was regarding the permeable surfaces and LID. You say that as long as there isn't an increase of non-permeable surfaces by an increase of 50%, then these LID requirements don't apply. Okay, they don't apply at all. Okay, so the clarity I think somebody was looking for, and I think, you know, in the cases of people who don't have to replace that, I think that's welcome news. Okay, I know we're getting close to time, but I want to make sure if there are any outstanding questions. I want to thank all of our department representatives who are here tonight. I know it's been a very difficult time for our Sunset Mesa residents, and they're just, you know, fighting to get back home, and we want to get them home as quickly as possible. You know that there have been challenges in how this is rolled out because, as I said earlier, you know, the county's policies didn't anticipate a time when we might be rebuilding hundreds of homes at the same time. And I know that that's a challenge for the homeowners association, which is why we want to work as closely with you as we possibly can to make sure that we're doing all that we can to both get people back home, get them home to a community that looks recognizable. And I know I really want to acknowledge the leadership of the homeowners association in that work, and making sure that you're staying on top of all of that. I know that that's a challenge with the number of rebuilds that we face in a very short period of time. So for any questions that we haven't answered, I will make sure that we have them documented from our staff, and we will have outstanding Q&As and put them together in a document that we can send to the community. So that way, if it answers your direct question or if it's a general question that can be answered for more, that your homeowner association leadership has those questions and answers, most importantly. I hope that today was helpful, that it was the level set that can help us stay on the same page going forward. I would welcome your input as to how this format worked, what topics we should focus on for the next conversation, and you know, how we can make sure that we're getting you the information that you need in a timely way. As I mentioned, we are tracking this information every week in our office, and in addition to the departments, because we know each department has their own set of information, but we want to make sure that we have a comprehensive set of information and set of data so we can track where those pinch points are. Thank you for engaging with us. I know it's very frustrating to have to go through this at all, but we don't want you to be suffering in silence. We don't want you to be alone in this process. We don't mind a million questions. We don't even mind that you're upset. I can't imagine how you're not upset having lost your homes and your community and everything else that goes with it. But we do intend to help bring you home as quickly as we possibly can. I really thank you for your willingness to engage with our staff, with our county, to help get this process done for you. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and please do reach out to my office if you have questions. Before our next meeting, we are here to help however we can, and thank you for your time tonight, and thanks again to all of our county representatives and my 3rd District staff.